The show is here. Yo, our mission is clear. It's time to change healthcare. Have no fear. Today is the day. This is the hour. Together, you know we've got the power. Drop the silos. We're all the same team. Patients, docs, nurses, tech, and marketing. How can anyone be satisfied with the way things have always been? Yeah, we've tried. So join us now. Join the revolution. Digital health is the evolution. Status quo, more like status no. Yeah, this is the healthcare rap. Y'all come on, let's go. Welcome to the Healthcare Rap, where we are ushering in the future of healthcare and the status quo no longer exists. Where we are challenging assumptions about marketing and technology, and we check yesterday's thinking at the door. Where truth drops like an atom bomb, and knowledge flows like Niagara Falls. Each week we challenge assumptions that have been holding back healthcare marketing, and explain how we can do better. Join us. This is the Healthcare Rap.
Hey, welcome back. I'm your host, Jared Johnson, and thanks for joining us this week. On the Healthcare Rap, we believe that the healthcare experience has to change, and we're trying to do something about it. If you want to help healthcare be more about consumers and innovation, this is the place for you. We're going to help you find your place in this new movement, and you'll be one of the ones leading meaningful change. Each week, we speak with leaders who are part of the movement. We share tips on shifting the way that healthcare is experienced digitally and the backstage strategies to stay ahead of the curve in your marketing operations and technology. This is episode number 138. We're now in season 4, which is all about digital innovation and career guidance. One resource we provide to help you become an agent of change is the Shift.Health Content Network, which is an influential thought leadership platform that currently includes 25 podcasts and video series. One of my favorite series on Shift.Health is The Resilience Journey. This series was created for everyone who is struggling with an unexpected job change, a derailed career plan, or unfulfilling work. Join me as I uncover the unexpected moments in the career journeys of admirable leaders by digging into the moments in their careers that we don't often hear about. The first season is free and available on demand, so go subscribe and check that out. So here's what's going to go down today. We've got the Flava of the week about overcoming gravity in our work. Then speaking of the resilience journey, the rest of today's program is an encore interview from that series featuring Jess Columbo, one of the country's leading digital and social media experts. What I enjoyed the most from speaking with Jess is how mindful she is of the pressures that young professionals put on themselves to power their way up the ladder quickly and think they have to take every step of their career paths perfectly. I think you'll enjoy what Jess has to say about the power of curiosity and how it powers her in a field that requires being nimble every single day. She'll share how too much focus on your elevator speech can actually paint you into a corner and lock you out from new opportunities. And she'll point out that while we typically aim for more comfort and less resistance in our work, the growth always happens in the times of discomfort, so learn to embrace it. Okay, it's time to dive right in. Are you ready? Let's go.
Flava of the week.
How do we overcome gravity? As we've all learned in grade school, gravity is what pulls us back to Earth. It's the force that keeps us from rising above our current station and exploring new frontiers. It acts in a predictable way. We have formulas that tell us how to get past it. One of the latest examples is the recent SpaceX Crew 1 launch. I don't know about you, but to me, space flights are always a highlight of human achievement. To comprehend all of the pieces and parts that have to work together to propel a rocket into space at 25,000 miles per hour still wows me just as much in my middle age as it did in grade school growing up in the shadow of NASA's Johnson Space Center. A simpler example of gravity is how it works with simple machines. A pulley, for instance, makes gravity work for you instead of against you. Instead of pushing a heavy object up on your own, you pull down on a rope to lift that object. There's gravity in our work, too. It's the status quo. It's groupthink. It's the force of people consciously and subconsciously telling each other not to do things differently. Just keep doing things in your predictable way to achieve predictable results. The only problem is nothing's predictable anymore. And a lot of those predictable results aren't good enough anymore anyway. But those forces are still there trying to pull us back to Earth and limit new ideas. How do these principles apply to digital transformation? Banner Health is an example. The digital marketing team of the Phoenix-based health system had to overcome the traditional mindset of appearing on page 1 of Google search results. Sure, they could have just sat back along with a lot of other folks and kept doing SEO and SEM like they always had been. Instead, they paid attention to consumer data, which showed them the need for a zero-click strategy. They saw that consumers are looking for information before even clicking anywhere, meaning they had to concede that the status quo was not going to keep them ahead of the game anymore. This was a major shift in their digital marketing strategy, and the results speak for themselves. Banner has been able to cut its paid search budget nearly in half. So how do we defy the forces of nature that keep holding us back? Sometimes it might take a mammoth effort like building a rocket. But sometimes the answer is as simple as creating a pulley. The quicker we start making progress toward overcoming gravity in our work, the quicker and more effectively we'll turn healthcare into a true consumer-centered experience. And that will be as thrilling to watch as SpaceX's next historic flight. It's time to take that next step. And that's the Flava of the Week. Well, hey, Jess Columbo is here with me today. Jess, thanks for joining me on the resilience journey. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk shop and everything in between.
You bet. That's what I kind of like about this. It's kind of an intersection of talking shop and what you've got going on day to day, where you are now, but then how you got there. And It hasn't just been like this linear journey straight from there to here. Everything went according to plan. But, here you are sitting here. You're the founder and CEO of a well-known marketing agency, a marketing firm that's doing a lot of good in the world, quite frankly. And it's not as simple as, hey, I snapped my fingers or I wrote something down however many years ago and now I'm here. There's a lot along this journey. So what if we start with where you are now and then we'll go back of like what's gone according to plan and what has not gone according to plan to get you there. Yes. But let's start off with where you are now. Tell us more about Tiller Marketing and everything.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm excited to dig into the hard, good, juicy stuff. I call myself a reluctant agency owner. Accidental, fortuitous. We have been really grateful to have a really strong network who has referred a lot of fun business our way, a lot of meaningful business our way over the last 5 years. So much so that I've had to build a team. But that wasn't the plan. That never has been the plan. But I'm really grateful for it. And I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of folks that help me do what we do every day. So we're, to some extent, a full service Marcom, kind of boutique sized agency, explicitly for clients in regulated spaces. So that's healthcare, higher ed, banking, government, anybody who's navigating compliance and some really tricky stuff, but also trying to build brand and build community and build leads. And bottom line, we have kind of unique background and expertise in that space, that little niche, which is regulation and then community. So most of the work that we do day to day is digital and social strategy, but also a lot of execution and creative work in that space. But COVID has changed the game for a lot of us, and we're doing out of home and we're doing radio spots and we're doing things that we never had to do because we need to reach people in whatever way. We need to meet them where they are. So we're designing billboards and doing TV spots. And that's been a really fun extension and learning experience for us in the last 6 months.
I mean, there's a first step along this journey, right? It's like the ever growing, just the difference, the flexibility, the agility to have to expand a knowledge set, even when you feel like things are set. You got your team, here are the things we rock and roll at, and now we're doing other things.
Right. Yes. And there's that line of, I don't want to say yes to something and stretch and make everybody uncomfortable or not be operating out of our strengths and underserve a client or have there be any kind of bait and switch. So when somebody says, can you do this? Having that reconciliation moment within yourself of saying, well, I could figure it out. Is that a good use of our time? And is that a way that we're best serving our client? Now, with COVID and public health and needing to get out in front of people and make sure that they're screened or that they know to use a mask, an extension of the communications and the creative that we were doing and hopping in a recording booth and doing a radio spot wasn't so far out of our scope that we didn't feel like we could still kick butt for people. And it was out of necessity. But yeah, my husband became my business partner 2 years ago, and it's been fascinating to be a couple years ahead of him on the entrepreneurial journey because I see myself and all of the imposter syndrome and the what about this, scenario. And I have continued to say to him, step in the step appears, but you have to be brave enough to put your foot out and know that you might drop, but that you're going to be okay, that you're not going to, you're going to survive that, you're going to figure it out. But that kind of courage comes from having failed or nearly failed and not died about 100 times, right? So now I can tell myself, worst comes to worst, I'll figure something out. And I think God bless small business owners who just every day they're hurdling a lot of different things and needing to kind of figure it out on the fly. Maybe when I have this idea that I'm going to get to a place where I'm really comfortable and I'm kicking butt and I feel like I'm operating out of my strengths all day, every day, but maybe at that point I would be totally dissatisfied with the journey, right? If I wasn't still curious and I wasn't still a little bit uncomfortable, maybe that's a really important part of continuing to get better and to be successful. I don't know.
That's a really interesting insight that you just uncovered. If the goal in our minds might have always been get to that comfortable place.
Right.
Yeah, it's 100% operating out of the strengths, like you said. And yet the discomfort is likely part of what has gotten you to where you are now.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I suppose that's where the growth happens, right? Yeah.
And, this field isn't exactly, I always joke with people, if we wanted something boring and stable, we'd be accountants.
Oh, yes. I was so jealous of all my friends in college. They knew they wanted to be an attorney. They knew they wanted to be a clinical provider. I knew I wanted to be a poet, much to my parents' disappointment at a very expensive liberal arts college. So I got a writing degree and I just wanted to get paid to write. And a lot of curiosity led me here. So yeah, there's something really safe and secure about knowing, but I've always really operated in the unknowing and it's turned out okay so far.
That's an important piece, right? It's turned out, and guess what's allowed you to not only roll with things, but to excel at things as they have changed. You're talking, I started out as a computer engineering major, then I became a psych major. Then I ended up with a PR degree that I haven't used in 15 years. I've been in, marketing. I learned how to code websites, like by hand, while I was in college. And then when it wasn't even a thing, I think there was one or two classes you could take. And then lo and behold, digital marketing and digital health weren't things then. But guess what's allowed me to kind of roll with that and not be stuck in one framework of what I do all day long, been able to figure it out as I go. So sometimes I look back and I'm like, that definitely did not go according to plan. But then I'm like, okay, well, the plan was to focus in certain areas and to continually learn and use these strengths. Well, here was a way to use those strengths all at the same time. And it sounds very similar in terms of where you've been able to figure that out. Marketing is, it's never going to be still. It's never going to stop moving. And so it sounds like you were used to things not standing still, and that has served you well.
I love how you're describing your journey, because I tell a lot of people that I'm mentoring from a professional standpoint that your career journey will only be linear in retrospect. It will never be linear when you're looking forward, right? And what you and I maybe have done is, along with a great deal of privilege that I want to acknowledge, I got a head start from a lot of reasons, and I've got a really supportive community around me and a lot of different areas of privilege. But looking forward, I have been spoiled enough to just pull on the string of curiosity and had managers or people around me say, yeah, I'm willing to let you go do a deep dive in CSS or do a deep dive in email analytics. Or I went back to school and studied palliative care because I happen to have unfortunately, a lot of personal experience early in my life in that space. That accidentally got me into healthcare, not something I would have ever dreamed I would be working in. So I think you and I both just kept pulling on the string of that sounds interesting and that feels meaningful to me. And in retrospect, now we can draw this kind of linear line, but to put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I think young people and people coming out of school right now, especially a ton, are putting a lot of weight on their shoulders that the next step has to be the step. And it has to be this seemingly linear move. I just don't think that's enough grace. And I don't think that's the reality of how a lot of us have built kind of our body of work.
I would definitely agree to that. And I agree with the pressure too. The feeling of, I've got to nail this time. Got to hit a home run every time I'm at bat. Everything's just got to be this, every piece of content's got to go viral. I'm going to build my brand, but every piece has got to go viral. And it's got to make this big difference in the world. And very, very few things can be further from reality.
Yes.
And that's a mindset. That had to be part of, I'd love to hear this part of your journey from poet to where you are now. So take us through that.
Yes. Graduated with a poetry degree and got out of school and reached out to a temp agency. And I said, I don't care where you put me. I just want to get paid to write. And I came out in the last recession school. So I work a lot with my undergrad career center and with some of the kids that I teach or young people that I'm able to teach now in the classroom from time to time and who are coming out in a recession, depression-esque time, who are saying, what? And I say, take out the garbage and take the gig and be the waiter or waitress, do the work that needs to get done. It will be very easy to create the story for the next hiring manager about how you worked your butt off to make it work during this time. And in the meantime, continue to pursue that portfolio work and the volunteer work and the stuff that is more in line with where you want to go. But I adore recruiters and staffing firms. I don't know why I wouldn't want lots of people looking for me on my behalf. And so I signed up with one, and they staffed me at a PR agency. And I didn't know what PR was. And I was the youngest kid there and was taking out garbage and was cutting clips and was getting yelled at for not doing either of those things right. And it was a much needed, humbling experience for me to be the bottom of the totem pole. What a gift that is. And Facebook opened up about a year later from college kids to brands. And as the youngest kid at the agency, I said, I think we should pay attention to this thing called Facebook. Twitter came the next year. And again, I had leaders who had enough courage to allow me the space in the room to play and to learn and to keep pulling on that string. So I was at the agency for a couple years. And unfortunately, I had some folks in my life that passed unexpectedly and had kind of a crash course in hospice and palliative care. And I said, I think I want to combine this thing digital that I'm really passionate about and this unusual skill set that I now have, which is spending time with people at end of life. And I want to go back to the classroom. So I went and got a graduate degree in journalism and digital communications, and specialized. My research area was in end of life and palliative care patients. So could online community add value to folks at a time when a lot of people are feeling isolated and depressed and there's a lot of lack of access to your community? Could online channels improve quality of life? And so I spent a couple years doing research, and little did I know that, 10, 15 years later, it's a very relevant body of work right now as well in the time of COVID. But came back to Portland, went back into the PR agency. They took me back. I was a boomerang at the same agency where I was able to help them build out their portfolio of digital and social marketing services. And then had an opportunity at a place called Oregon Health and Science University. And they were really building out their digital social program. It was kind of a one-woman band up on the hill. And so I came in and I took her place and I worked my tail off and spent a lot of time building relationships so that I could do the work. First, I had to gain people's trust. I had a crash course in kind of politics and corporate bureaucracy and institutional life, which was a really important, really humbling experience, and was able to build a team up there and a practice. And as we evolved that and grew the work that we were doing on the Hill, I started to identify another kind of area of curiosity and a niche, which was the intersection of kind of regulation and social. And I realized I had started teaching at OHSU in their NEO, which is New Employee Orientation. And I realized that integrating social media curriculum at New Employee Orientation was, in my opinion, the most crucial touch point of getting people on board and engaged as brand advocates and ambassadors, but also getting ahead of risk. So they're not taking silly selfies on the floor when they go into the labor and delivery room, right? I didn't want to be the social media policewoman. I wanted to be the cheerleader of that space. And I thought, I think I want to teach and full time. I think this is what I want to do, is just support people as they embrace this space and all the possibilities in it, but also knowing that they've got concerns around privacy or around data or around reputation, and how do we navigate that? And it was really the teaching and working with folks that got me to launch my practice. So that was about 5 years ago. We'll get to it, but my dad's first question was, how are you going to make the same amount of money? You crazy person. I am so concerned. He had a lot of fear about going out on my own. A lot of people had concerns out of love, I think, And I didn't know, but I thought I could figure it out. And here we are.
Well, there's a piece you just landed on, like just now. I didn't know, but I knew I'd figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
That is a mindset in and of itself. Let's dive into that a little bit. Like, what allows you to think that way? Like, what allows you to feel like, I'll be able to figure this out? I don't know A to Z, but I know A to D. I can get there, and then I'll have a better vantage point to get past there. What allows you to think that way?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to say privilege, and I had helicopter parents who just blew a lot of smoke up my ass. My whole life told me I was the best thing that ever happened to this planet, and I could do anything I put my mind to. And unfortunately, I started to believe them. And also, I think I've been really grateful for a robust community. And in areas where I've been weaker or not had access or not had good visibility, I've learned to ask for help when I need to. So I tell a lot of people as they start their business, get yourself a great accountant and get yourself a great therapist. And that team of Avengers, I think, is the wind beneath your wings as a small business owner. So some of what I can figure out is because I've got really lovely humans around me. Get yourself a great partner. Doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but somebody who can listen to you gripe day in and day out in the beginning when everything feels really heavy, like a really heavy lift. Someone told me in the beginning of entrepreneurship, they said, is being an entrepreneur just Googling things? And I said, hell yes, it is. So Google, I want to give a shout out to Googles for a lot of things, but truly the gift and the challenge of this is that whether I'm happy or I'm unhappy, it's solely my responsibility. And so I hate that sometimes. I hate it when I'm really unhappy. And I think, damn it, that's my problem too. I can't just blame anybody else. And it's also a really freeing experience as a business owner, as my own boss. I think a lot of people, see the really shiny stuff and they think you're killing it. That must be so fun. You can just take off in the middle of the day. Okay, it is a gift, but the responsibility is significant as well. But there's a lot of probably therapy, great partners and team members, a really supportive family, and then enough trying and failing and trying again and succeeding that I think just time on the ground builds that kind of reservoir of strength and courage. But if you don't work out your courage muscle, it's not getting bigger. So to continue to do things that freak you out is a really important part of my journey, for sure.
I love that, which means it hasn't been success 100% of the time. There have been some low points in there. Can you take us through any low points that come to mind where things were not going according to plan and it really wasn't as clear, like what my options are, starting to freak out a little bit? Any low points that come to mind?
Yeah, sure. I set out this practice to do something totally different. And I think one of your interviews with Joe was fabulous. It was one of those, it's so simple when you get out of your own way and just listen to what the community needs or what your customers are asking for, instead of being so ingrained on what you thought you were going to do or what you wanted to build and being in love with the product or service. There were times where I felt like I was pushing this rock up the hill in terms of what I was trying to build, and it just wasn't catching, or people weren't understanding it. I was using language even in describing my service offerings, and that wasn't the language that my customer was using or that my client was asking for. And so being humbled enough to understand that kind of the three-legged stool of what are my clients ready for, and then where is my joy? And how do I design a practice, where I'm sitting in something that really energizes me a lot and where I feel really strong in my skill set, but also that meets my client where they are and is really empathic or compassionate to where they're at, is something that I struggled with and I still struggle with. I have a lot of grand plans, and I think giving yourself the flexibility to be nimble and to pivot, especially with COVID, is paramount. I had a body of coursework and some books and a lot of things in production in Q1, and everything is sitting over here. And, you flog yourself about all the things you coulda, woulda, shoulda been doing and the things that you should be. If I wanted to do my morning pages and be a writer, then I should be up at 5 a.m. writing. But I'm not. And that's okay because I'm really tired right now. So I think there's a lot of challenges that were around trying to force something that it wasn't the right time or I wasn't ready to actually, bring to market. I also had times where I took on work, I underbid, and I said yes to distractions that I thought were opportunities, because those things look very, very similar. But I knew it wasn't the industry. I knew it wasn't a mission alignment. You know it in your gut. And I took it because I was scared, because the money looked good, because the security of having it on a retainer felt good. And then it was a painful ride. And I'm a bit conflict averse. So firing a client or squandering something and being in a situation that's not right to the point where you have to part ways, it's just an unnecessary goof up. If I had addressed it earlier on, and again, I chalk it all up to a big boatload of learning as I go along. But I've had some painful breakups because I wasn't courageous enough at the jump. And the big asterisk is sometimes you need to take those gigs because you need to pay your mortgage. And that is totally okay too. So just a big heaping pile of grace onto yourself, because even the goof ups, I feel like, are unbelievably valuable learnings.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know any successful person who has said, I got here in spite of those. It's like because of those yes. points. And
because of not in spite of, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of pain in the moment. And like you said, we can look back and things seem linear. We can look back and say, oh yeah, that was good for me. I mean, just like a lot of other things in life. And it is so not clear in the moment. And I like one other thing you said about just giving yourself the flexibility and the grace, because I feel like that's harder to do when you're so set on caring what other people think. There's a difference between that and if I make a mistake and people see that, like I'm screwed. You know, like people's perception of me is going to go down, and I'm not going to, in my case, your case, I'm not going to get that client because they're not going to think I'm the right match or the right fit for what their needs are. And you can spin yourself in circles with that type of self-talk. So how do you know when to pay attention to what people think and when not to?
Yeah, that's a really great, you're making me think a lot about, I think a lot of us are worried about like your elevator pitch and your personal brand, right? Am I the healthcare gal? Am I the compliance gal? And I had initially, when I started, I was seeking out a business coach, and I still believe that business coaches can be incredibly helpful. I happened to find people who wanted, without throwing anybody under the bus, there were styles that were either too woo-woo and they wanted to kind of hold hands and or styles that were really like, here's what you got to do. Let me tell you, little lady, what you got to do. And neither of those really vibed for me as a business coach. But a lot of those folks were telling me to be more, to prioritize and to really build something that could be scalable or replicable, but to be more focused. And so I spun for a long time about how specific I needed to be so that I had that really clean elevator pitch so that people knew in one line what I did and what I didn't do. And what that does then is kind of box you into, what if I want to explore this other thing? How do I tell that story? And admittedly, I still think about that, especially on LinkedIn. I'm starting tomorrow an end-of-life doula program. In addition to this body of work that I do, I continue to still be really passionate about that space. And I want to, on the side, in conjunction with, maybe to supersede my marketing career at some point, I don't know. I wanted to go back to school and continue to learn. And to introduce that on LinkedIn and to add enough verbiage in there that my current clients didn't get worried and that my prospective clients still knew that I did this kind of work, instead of kind of embracing it as an and not an or, and as a way that I was expanding creatively, and that's going to make me a better practitioner in the marketing space as I explore this kind of personal program that I'm doing. I spun a little bit on how I was going to present that to my online community and how I was going to publicly explain it. And that seems short-sighted and limiting, and maybe doesn't do enough justice to your community, who maybe gives you a lot more benefit of the doubt than you give yourself.
Yeah, for sure. It makes me harken back. So I'm, with all the major changes at college, I still minored in business. So I at least I had a business background too. And things were like very entrenched you're going to your marketing classes and there's your 4 Ps, and then you're going to business class, and like the whole replicable model that can be franchised essentially, that's the one way to build your business. And I've felt that same part about just feeling the boxed in part. And I used to take it as kind of a liability when people would ask. Maybe it's just because they were fellow marketers, people who I would know, I'd see at a conference or whatever and actually meet in person for the first time, maybe someone I was connected to in my network. And now remind me what you do, we're connected and this and that, like remind me what you do. And I used to take it as a liability because I'm like, well, I'd have to think real quick, wait, what industry are they in? Like, what do they do? What do I apply? And I'm like, you name it. I could, I felt like I could say whatever you need. whatever that is, I will figure it out. I mean,
Army knife.
That's how the journey has been in a lot of cases, and a lot of times for me. And that quality of, I'm starting finally to see that as an asset where, okay, like, here's what I do now. But here's the umbrella of that. Here's why. I mean, it's hard to fit it in an elevator speech now, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Right. And as you evolve and get a little bit higher up in you really are working less at the channel or tool or, I do X, Y, and Z, but also I think a lot about building community and building brand while protecting bottom line. Like you use different language to say, well, I work in strategy that does, and it's more aligned with values and mission and audience and kind of business goals. And the language that I use around what I do or what I can do is kind of out of the mud of what used to be, I think I would default to kind of tactical, right? Or I do, but using the term content strategy, I think is kind of a hot mess depending on the context and who you're talking to. And a lot of people can't wrap their arms around what that looks like. And so, it's probably a lot of trial and error and also kind of an evolution of you professionally to figure out how you talk about what you love to do, what you kick butt at without feeling sheepish about it or like you're just trying to satisfy somebody else's. You're at a networking event and you're like, whatever it is you want me to do, I can do that for you. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I resonate with that. I feel your pain.
Content strategy, that just means you figure out what days to blog, right? That's
right? No, I've heard. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think it took me about 5 years to realize that when I say content, other people just think blog writing.
There you go.
And I'm like, okay, we're not quite.
So many assumptions that we make, and understandably so. But client service, man. Yeah. For sure. Any thoughts there on like the role that personal brand has played in your career and your path so far, and how do you keep it relevant? There are some really wonderful people that I've worked in this space and coached a lot of people in this space. I think a lot of it has been more organic because of my personality and kind of my journey and the personal brand that I have built, but I think a lot by, I want to say default, because it's been really, really organic. But I see a lot of coaches, personal branding coaches that, are more explicit and more dialed in the way that they're explaining it to prospective clients. But I was speaking with someone recently and said, I'm mostly interested in what you're excited about and what pisses you off and what you want to be different in your space. I want to know that you have opinions and really strong ones about the things that you care about. And then let's put that out in the world in a way that's accessible to the people that you want to engage with. And that is the whole of your professional brand. So I started speaking. I think it can be as simple as that. I started speaking when I left OHSU about the work that we had done there and kind of went on the speakers tour and did a lot of speaking for free before I got to a place where I could get up the gumption of asking to be paid to speak a couple years later, but unapologetically myself. And I am very palatable and exciting to some people, and some people fall asleep or I'm just not their flavor. And that is totally fine. I move towards the people, with whom my personality and my content and my values are a match. So I was frequently introducing myself as the over-caffeinated, over-excitable Italian. There is a lot packed into this small unit. And I think that my energy was infectious to the people who wanted to be excited and had that kernel in themselves, but maybe weren't in a workplace or didn't have leadership that was acknowledging that. And so I've come in and worked with a lot of organizations where there's somebody in there that's been saying the same thing that I say as a consultant. And I can come in there and be a bigger voice for them, or I can validate that, or we can elevate their kind of growing skill set in the space of digital and social. And so I think I've been just an advocate for the things that I care about and for the people that I care about. And that's created whatever brand I have. So 5 years later, for good or for bad, 100% of the business that we've had is referrals. I think my personal brand is authentically rooted in taking care of my online community and the people that are in my community offline as well. And they continue to take really good care of us. And so I'm not going to mess that up. So right now I'm excited to be a part of this conversation because you're giving this huge gift to people who might be struggling or thinking twice about where they're headed and what direction they're going next. And I think this is a gift to people, and it comes back, tenfold. So I've admittedly not had a documented personal brand statement or, any kind of content billers identified in that. I've tried very hard because humble brags, people smell those coming a mile away, but that's how I started on LinkedIn, just making myself look bigger than I was by talking about everything that I was doing and running myself ragged doing all those things. So at some point, you got to figure out where burnout lies too, and be a little bit more intentional about, where you're investing your energy. But does that answer your question or does it ramble around it? Okay.
No, 100%. That's going to be a relief to a lot of people who watch this you didn't have a gimmick. You didn't have to come up with some song and dance, some dog and pony show. Right. That's your personal brand, because I hope people don't think that's what you have to do. You don't have to be the 15-minute marketing video while I'm juggling, whatever it is. And here I am saying that, and I kind of built a personal brand for a while on rapping on stage. And I'm like, I genuinely look back and I'm like, okay, that has been fun at some times. And at other times I'm like, I hope people realize that was just to keep them awake.
Yes.
And that was it. If that got you to think differently. Right.
Yes.
And there's a lot more to the brand, what I'm thinking about than that. And I've intentionally, just put more thought-provoking questions out there versus trying to be like an entertainer. And I feel like it's, for me, I can think of it as my personal brand is starting to grow up a little bit, because I'm still I don't know if I've ever reached adulthood, maturity wise. So I might always have a little bit of that in me.
Yes.
But, I can see how things have evolved a little bit as the conversations have changed. And I like how much you keep mentioning community. As we kind of start to wrap up here, any final thoughts about community, how to keep in touch with people, as tactical as you want to get here?
Yeah.
But how to build a community when somebody just thinks it's just me. What am I going to do? Do I have to, people just must have somehow got a lot of followers or people who want to connect with them.
Right.
How do I do that?
Right. Yes. Okay. Love it. I would say reach out and connect with recruiters and connect with staffing firms so that you can have a larger team of Avengers that are looking for you and supporting you in job growth and professional growth. I follow up and I make a joke of it in every meeting saying, I'm going to stalk you after this on LinkedIn, but I'm going to let you know that a LinkedIn connection request is coming to expand my network. I generally accept anything that feels like it's an authentic request to connect with me as well. And you can kind of smell the ones that are funky or that super salesy or are spammy. And then the same way that you would build social media community, you'd say, okay, give as a brand, and then make the ask, but make sure that they're primed for the ask by being really generous ahead of that. I share jobs that I see. I share, I champion folks as much as possible and congratulate folks and do it in a way that feels comfortable and natural to you. But I'm online engaging with my folks a whole lot so that when the time comes, it's not going to feel gross when I say, I could use some help actually. Or does anybody have a great media buyer that I could partner with? Or it's similar, if not the exact same as you are sustaining in your offline relationships. But it takes time and investment in doing that. So some people dedicate a day of the week or 7 to 8 in the morning, but I do need there's got to be a sense of consistency on how you show up, and for people, I think that's a big deal. Those are my good ones, my tactical ones.
Those are fabulous. I've genuinely enjoyed hearing about the journey, Jess, because there's a lot of questions that people are going to, I think, at least have a next step kind of lit up for them that they can say, okay, I can at least go this direction. That really helped me just to hear someone else go through the same same thought process, same questions they've had. And that's truly going to be a gift. So I just wanted to thank you for the time. It has been a pleasure. I love just kind of catching up, but also just hopefully people get something out of this. I know they will. And I just wanted to wish you the best. I wanted to say, stay safe, stay well, all the best to you, and best of luck with everything you've got going on.
Thank you. We'll do this over beer next time. Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks so much to Jess, and thank you for listening. I hope you found some value in this conversation. And if you did, please tell your friends and colleagues about this podcast. Healthcare Rap is a member of the Shift.Health Content Network. Don't forget, go check that out at Shift.Health. It's podcasts and video series about shifting the way healthcare is experienced. Until next time, keep marketing forward. Thanks, and that's a wrap.